Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back to the southern wing of the Stinkbug Works for today's post-float debrief. Well, the maiden run of the Geared Wonder Woman Extreme was pretty good. It ran a little wet. It was dragging the transom a bit. And so what I've done, you can see in here, the top of the strut used to come almost, but not quite, up to the top of the strut bracket. Now it's down there about 4 or 5 millimeters. So I've knocked it down about 4 or 5 millimeters. As I did, the length from here to here got shorter, so my shaft, being the same length, got longer, and now this is all the way in at the stop, and that's a little more gap than I like. Now, I could take that up with a nylon washer, but what'll happen is when I finally get the strut to where I like it, because I may wind up tilting this, which will again move this forward and make the shaft appear longer. So once I get the final angle of dangle right, then I'll pull the shaft out and grind the tip. So the shaft's been pulled, and you can see fresh grease coming out of there. So it's ready to go. I forgot what prop I had on here. I think this is a 640. Let's take a look and see. What prop do I have on there? Wait, I thought that was a 1/4 inch. Oh, it is a 1/4 inch. Let's see, boys and girls, what prop is on there. And will I need to pull out a magnifying glass to read it? I can read Arctura, but I can't read anything else. Stand by for the magnifying glass, and it says it's a 637. That's probably the prop I should be running on the other boat. That will be in part 2 of today's video. We will look at the other boat, the Pan Pac. So this guy's running an X637. The gearing seemed about right. The cat pack got up to 120 degrees. And while that's a little bit warm, it's not out of line at all. So 120 degrees is just fine. 120 degrees is where you start saying, maybe I'll watch that and look at it next time I come in. There you go. Post-run maintenance. Strut lowered, angle tilted down just a bit, no change of prop. Gearing seems about right. Stand by, we'll look at the next boat. Until then, jet out. Welcome back, boys and girls, to part 2 of today's video from the southern wing of the Stinkbug Works. I forgot to slurp coffee in the first episode, so here you go. This puppy had a little issues. The first run, everything inside was happy, but it seemed to be dragging the stern a little bit. So I lowered the strut and I changed the prop. Should really only do one tune at a time, but since I do my tunes at home and the runs at the lake and the runs are so few and far betweens, I did 2 mods. So I dropped the strut and I changed the prop to this really nice Arctura V937. Now this This is to make outriggers go stupid fast. I mean, this is a really aggressive prop. I mean, really aggressive. And this one has been race prepped. It's been polished and thinned, and it's razor sharp. You can shave with the thing. And it was just a little bit too much for this thing. As it would go down the straight, you could hit the throttle and you could see the back end just go like that. And so it wasn't handling nearly as well as it did before. Once set up in a turn where you've slowed down a bit and you've got other forces acting on the boat, the throttle blipping wasn't so readily apparent, scooting the back end around. But next time out, I'm going to run this very conservative. I forgot what I put on here. I think it might be another 637. It might be a 638. And here's a little secret. Look what I have here in my box of props. I have just what I need. Just what I need to see. And this is another X37. I also have this, what is this one? This is a 536. This is a Y series. Big B asked me about Y series props, and my experience is they're pretty much the same as the X series, only they seem to be all at 1.5 pitch. And my guess is this. When Arctura was designing and making molds for props, the X series were all 1.4s, and then they did some Y series at 1.5, and then they came back and revisited the X series and did some 1.6s. And they didn't want to call them Zs, so they just went back to calling them Xs. Big B thinks the tongue area and blade area may be different, and, you know, I haven't really analyzed it that closely. He may be right. But for all practical purposes, the X and the Ys are the same thing other than the pitches. And then you do what I do. You cut off the tongues, and then they become different creatures. I'll tell you why I cut off the tongues. Let's see, I have a prop here. Here's why I cut off the tongues. The pitch changes across the blade. The pitch at this point is much, much lower than the pitch at this point. So when they tell you it's a 1.4 pitch, they mean it's 1.4 average. But this part of the pitch, or this part of the blade, has the lowest pitch of all. And when this blade is running half out of the water, as this blade right here is exiting the water and giving its maximum kick, this part of the blade is entering and actually slowing things down with this lower pitch. So if you cut that off, this part's going to be given its maximum kick, and you still don't have any of this blade in the water yet. So that's my logic for detonguing them. Does it change the lift of the prop? I haven't really seen much of that. What I've found in the Arctura series props is the lift is a function of the rake angle. Here we go. This is like a 17 series prop. This is actually some ancient prop, but it's very similar to a 17 series cleaver. And you see it has almost no rake. Do I have a cleaver prop? Yeah. So this is an Arctura 17 series. And you see there's no rake on these at all. And these are dedicated lifting props for hydros. And you see, it's essentially detongue. This is what they used to call the cleaver blade because it was sort of shaped like a meat cleaver. And terminologies have come and gone. And so I don't know if they're necessarily calling that the cleaver. But this is a 17 series props. I've had good luck with them on some boats. And not many, but some boats. My original bat boat, which was an Electric Thunder shovel nose done up in Batman theme. So the bat boat wasn't the first one I did. And it ran a 1735 on a brushed motor with round cells, on a mega motor with round cells. And it did well with that lifting prop. Nothing else did but that particular boat. So there you go. I'm going to put a less aggressive prop on here. Get rid of this ridiculous what is this? This is kind of like what you'd find in the bottom of a blender. You know, you make margaritas with that. So my choice again, it looks like both guys are running 637s. This one probably has a slightly different profile than that one. My operating procedures kind of different from Big B too, in that Big B has multiple places to run his boats, and he can do experiments with props and such. I'm in such a limited area that once I find one that's good enough, then I leave it on the boat and call it good enough. Could I do the Big B prop tuning thing and get the one that's absolutely the best? Yeah, I could. But then I'd never really be able to utilize it in my pond. So I tend to be a little less picky on props just because of where I run and how I run, you know. It's a different style. And lately I've found myself, and over there in the Eastern Wing is a good example, of going more for style points as opposed to speed points. I want it to be quick, yeah, but it doesn't have to be maxed out. It's just got to draw attention. Like the other boat yesterday, it wasn't running right. You know, it was skipping all over the place, and all the audience was duly impressed. You and I weren't so much so because we know what to expect, but our audience was impressed. So that's what I like. Fast enough to impress the audience. We, as the performers, know it could perform a little better. And Big B, he takes that performance right to the razor's edge. Sometimes he goes over the edge, but most of the time he stays right there on the edge. And that's where you're going to get your best performances, when you're on that cutting edge. So there you go. I give you salsa and guacamole. He gives you meat and potatoes. And what do you need to cut the meat? You need the cutting edge. Until next time, boys and girls, jet out.